So this is the first PercX video, and there's so much to look at, but what we're going to do first is go through the fastest way to get into the content, play all the instruments, try them as loops, multi-sampled instruments, and then we'll look at composing stuff inside PercX and go through all the features in more detail. After purchasing PercX, you'll get an email asking you to set a password, which you then use to log in when you open the instrument for the first time. Once you do this, it will start to download the content straight away. If you purchased PercX Core, that's the core content and one extra collection, which you can choose by going to the Store tab. And if you purchased PercX Pro, you get all 5 available collections, which totals over 500 instruments. There are multiple collections available in PercX, and that's only going to grow over time. At the moment, we've got the core content, the hybrid pulse, producer essentials, cinematic rhythms, and traditional X. So a kit on the surface is essentially a set of up to 8 instruments, but it's actually a lot more than that, and you'll see why in a second. So let's go ahead and load up a kit. Straight away, we can play the entire kit loop by playing the C down here. Okay. You can also play any instrument from a kit individually. You can change the rhythm of any instrument. You can clear the rhythm completely and write your own. And it doesn't even end there. You can actually load any instrument as a complete sampled instrument, which is multi-round robin variation, multi-dynamic, up to 8 dynamic layers actually. And of course, it goes without saying that you can load any combination of instruments from different kits. So there's really no limit to what kind of percussive arrangements you can make with this thing. Obviously, every kit in PercX, when you first load it, loads up as a percussion arrangement, a piece of music almost. It will have been written at a certain tempo. If you want to hear it at the original tempo that it was written in, just load it up, right-click up here on the tempo, and click set to default tempo of A. So there's so many different drums in PercX. Loads of drums, loads of real drums, loads of sound design. We literally recorded hundreds of real instruments for the content that currently exists, and that's only going to grow because we're not going to stop here. And we got real drums, we got sound design, we got everything in between. Even if we take Taikos, for example, there will be a bunch of different types of Taikos. Anything from real Taikos in all sorts of different sizes to, looks like here we've got 2 Taikos run through guitar amps. There's so much to explore. Let's pick a kit and go into some more details. go back to Shinobi. I like it a bit faster. Okay, so as you've already seen, we use C to play the entire kit loop at once. E to B are used to play the individual instruments. And the C sharp and D trigger the upper four and the lower four instruments. But over here, we have 3 blank in the lower 4, so it's only playing this 1 here. Let's look at how Perk X deals with tempo. So as you've probably heard, when we change the tempo, there is no time stretching, no artifacts. The loop locks perfectly to the new tempo. The reason we can do this is because every single hit that you hear in Perk X is a completely individual sample of its own, from attack to tail. And all that happens when you change the tempo is it's locking the samples, it's locking the rhythm into the new tempo. So if you see down here, I've got my collections browser. If I click on one, I see the kits inside that collection. And if I click on a kit, I see the instruments inside that kit. But if you click the little icon up here, you can actually browse instruments by category. And if you actually deselect a collection and deselect the kits, you can browse any instrument just via the categories here. You can also use these parameters to filter the instruments by some attributes like sustain, pitch, transient, how organic it sounds, and how ambient it is. Another thing is, if you're browsing through instruments, because you can load instruments separately, of course, just by dragging them onto a track. If you want to hear them without loading them on a track, you just have to hold Control and click and hold. So it's super easy to find something. I think this is quite an organic sounding kit. Everything's pretty real. Let's go ahead and find something non-organic and add it in there. So we'll go to SFX, we'll turn the organic slider way down so we get nothing real, and let's see what we got here. That could work, because there's not a lot of high content in this either, so it'll probably cut through quite nicely. So you can see that it locks in straight away. You don't have to do anything. And again, we can change the tempo completely freely, no time stretching, no artifacts. Now let's go ahead and add a few other things. Let's fill up all 8 instrument tracks here. So it's got some highs, but it's not a lot. Now I can easily fix that with these shaper effects knobs here. What you have is you have 3 empty knobs where you can add any of these 8 shaping effects. Now, we've got one called Air, and it does exactly that. Let's go ahead and, if we play the F, we can listen to just that stem, and let's pull the Air up and see how it sounds. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. And now, if we listen to the whole thing. Okay, Okay, let's fill up the final track with something. I reckon there's space in there for something with a really long tail among everything else. So let's go to metals and turn the sustain right up and see. Epic cowbell. Let's put the epic cowbell in. Why not? No, let's not. That could work. Turn it down a little bit. Okay, and actually I'm thinking now that I don't need both of these. I'm getting the highs that I wanted from the tiny ticks. So I'm going to clear that. Let's add some whispers in. Why not? Okay, let's look at something now that makes mixing and matching different instruments really efficient. You'll notice that in every track, next to the instrument name, there's a little lock icon. You can use this to lock either the instrument using lock sound or lock the rhythm using lock pattern. I like the rhythm of this track, but I'm not too sure about the sound and I want to try some different instruments, but keep the rhythm. I'm going to click lock pattern. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to preview some of the big drums. Let's pick something random. Quite like that. I'm going to go with djun power fills. So I click it and drag it over to this track. You'll see it shows that the pattern's locked. I let go and it's changed the instrument, but it's kept the rhythm. Let's have a listen to just track one and you'll see. And the whole loop. Let me turn it up a bit. Okay. I'm liking that. Now, the same thing, of course, works the other way around. So I can experiment with rhythms. Let's say the tiny tick. It's just straight semiquavers. Let's say I wanted it to have a bit of a groove to it, but I like the sound. I want it there. So we're going to lock the sound this time. I'm going to use these arrows here, which load the previous instrument or the next instrument from the same category. But obviously, because I've locked the sound, it's only going to load the rhythms. I'm going to just see what happens. That's already pretty cool. Okay, yeah, I like that. And look, I haven't even got into composing and arranging my own rhythms yet. I haven't touched a single MIDI note and I've already created something unrecognizable from what I started with. And the last thing we'll look at before going into creating your own arrangements from scratch in PercX is loading all the instruments as complete sampled instruments in manual mode. We'll go with deep Taikos, and if you click this button here, it switches the instrument into manual mode. You can play this instrument with the exact same key you use to trigger it when it's in loop mode, which is B flat for track 2. And you can also use the octave below just to make it easier to play. So you can see this down here on the keyboard display, there's a little target icon has appeared. And that indicates that the track that these two keys are controlling is now in manual mode. And I can go ahead and just... I can set multiple instruments to manual mode and play them all at the same time as sample instruments. And each dynamic layer is represented by these little icons that have appeared where the waveform used to be. And obviously the number of icons corresponds with the number of dynamic layers that that instrument has. And you'll also see that on the left and on the right, you've got two sliders. The slider on the left is used to trim the amount of pre-roll before the transient, and you can use this to make the drums feel more responsive when you play, to sound more snappy, especially if they are drums which have a longer attack. The slider on the right controls the amount of volume difference between the softest and the loudest dynamic. So if we turn it all the way down, there'll be no difference in volume between the softest hits and the hardest hits. And actually, it's much easier if we just go ahead and click them. And you can see that they're all the same loudness, despite the fact that they are played softer and played louder. We turn it all the way up, there's a huge difference. Something around here. Feels about right. So that brings us to the end of the first video. In the next one, we're going to look at how you can actually write your own arrangements in PercX using the Edit tab. I'll see you then.